Good afternoon and welcome to the Council Committee of the Whole meeting of April 22nd, 2026. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Take an opportunity to read our land acknowledgement. The city respectfully acknowledges the Métis, Cree, Beaver, and Dene people as the original caretakers of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island and acknowledge that these lands have been home to diverse First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. First, I'm going to start with a proclamation for today, Earth Day proclamation. So from the Office of the Mayor, Earth Day is April 22nd, which is today, 2026, whereas Earth Day was first observed in 1970 to raise awareness of the health of the environment, and whereas the first International Earth Day, held in 1990, mobilized citizens and leaders in 141 countries to join a global effort to protect the environment, and whereas all sectors of society have the responsibility to act positively for the environment, and whereas our daily actions can pollute and degrade the fragile environment that both humans and wildlife depend on to survive. And whereas Earth Day is a day that is intended to inspire awareness and appreciation for the Earth's natural environment, and whereas Earth Day encourages citizens to act positively for the environment and adopt responsible lifestyle habits that conserve and protect local and global ecosystems, whereas Earth Day provides the opportunity for positive actions to conserve your natural resources by reducing, reusing, and recycling, using efficient transportation, and buying and using products and services that are environmentally responsible. Now, therefore, I, Jackie Clayton, Mayor of the City of Grande Prairie, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2026 as Earth Day in the Peace Region. We encourage all residents to use this day for positive public activities, promoting direct community action to preserve the environment. So thank you for that opportunity. And we're going to present this, so if I ask council to join me. All right, so thanks to our environmental team, and for those who aren't aware, lots of great activities happening this weekend in celebration of Earth Day. So moving along under reports, item number 4.1, professional involvement and the National Building Code, and I'll turn this one over to Chief Glavin for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Previous CCW meeting referred this back to administration for some work on what the city's doing around red tape reduction with regard to professional involvement, as this has been an issue that has been coming up more frequently with the current version of the code. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Johnson and Mr. Bogath, who will give you the details.
Check, check. There we go. Good afternoon, Mayor Clayton and Council. I'd like to introduce Brad Bogath. He's the manager of the Inspection Services Division of our Development Services Department. At the February 11th Council Committee of the Whole meeting, committee directed administration to bring back a report to the appropriate standing committee with information on what the city is doing for red tape reduction regarding the development and redevelopment for projects that require professional involvement. Brad has prepared a presentation for committee explaining what professional involvement is and when it is required, so I won't go over that portion of the report. I will, however, respond to the motion that was passed. As noted in the report, the thresholds and conditions when professional involvement is required are laid out in the building code. The Government of Alberta periodically issues what are called standards, which are official code clarification documents. Administration has been in contact with Municipal Affairs and Safety Codes Council and have been advised that a stand data and training specific to professional involvement is currently under development and is anticipated to be released in the coming months. Until such time as additional provincial guidance is provided, the city's Safety Codes officers will continue to administer and enforce the building code in its current form. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brad for his presentation.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Mayor Clayton and Council. I'm here to present the requirements for professional involvement within the building process. This presentation is meant as a general overview of professional involvement requirements. Professional involvement is when a registered architect or certified interior designer and/or professional engineer is involved in the design of a project. They take responsibility and are held responsible for the design and construction of the project through professional seals and field reviews, which are confirmed by submitting schedules to the Safety Codes Officer. Life safety and proper building design are the primary purpose of any SCO and the design professional. Our main responsibility is to the end user and to the owner of the project to protect their safety and investment. Secondary to this is the liability exposure of the developer, builder, and municipality. Professional involvement is a risk management framework built into provincial legislation. That legislation of 3 provincial acts and the building code is what governs Safety Codes officers while determining professional involvement requirements. These acts and the building code have the same requirements for determining involvement. Generally, in any commercial occupancy, could require involvement depending on size and complexity. Although there are no area limitations for residential set out in the acts or code, professional involvement can be required due to complexities arising from size. To determine if involvement is required by building code and the acts, 3 categories are used: occupancy type, building area, and building height.
No, just go over it. Go back to the 2 and start again.
Okay. So determine involvement is required by a building code and the acts. 3 categories are used: occupancy type, building area, and building height. Here is a condensed version of the code and act requirements for presentation purposes. The numbers shown are when involvement is not required. This implies everything needs professional involvement unless exempted by these size requirements. This exempts certain building types from requiring professional involvement, most notably residential projects to a maximum of 4 units, including single-family dwellings. However, there is a clause that allows for involvement regardless of size for complex projects, which is described later in the presentation. The total building area is required to decide when involvement is needed. This clause of the building code allows a building to be divided using a firewall, not a fire separation, lowering the total building area considered for involvement determination. There are many factors that can result in a project being complex, initiating professional involvement. Buildings under the area thresholds can follow prescriptive code requirements. If a design deviates from these prescriptive requirements, involvement is required. The common examples shown all add mechanical, electrical, and structural complexity to a project. To help with understanding, we've included some simple examples to go over. When we receive an application for a new base building C or commercial retail unit, it has proposed occupancies, which is required for the design review. This allows the developer to design the building accordingly, which can limit future costs and problems, i.e. future-proofing the base design. Note that a base building is an empty building before tenant construction has been completed. As in this example, a developer will sometimes design to the least restrictive occupancy to save on initial costs and time. This can increase time and costs during the tenant improvement and may even limit what businesses are allowed to be in the building. Here is the same example, but now they are doing the tenant improvements. Bays 2 and 3 are developed as an accountant and a shoe store. Now a gym wants to move into Bay 1. This would require impression involvement as the total building area would be used. This shows the same example, but with a firewall separating bays 1 and 2, reducing the building area of bay 1 to where involvement is not required. This scenario is normally in industrial buildings and rarely happens in commercial settings. Example 2 shows a low to medium hazard industrial building. Because it conforms to the prescriptive requirements in Part 9 of the Building Code and is below the building size requirements, professional involvement is not required. Detailed designs are still needed, but they do not need to be stamped or sealed by a certified design professional. Here we have a similar F2 medium industrial building as a repair garage. This as a base building would not require involvement, but as a repair garage, many different complexities can be added. Service pits and paint booths to wash bays all add mechanical, electrical, and building complexities that would need professional expertise to design and implement. Example 3 shows a renovation with a change of occupancy. The designed occupancy of a building becomes difficult to determine the older the building is. Between a lack of documentation and unpermitted renovations through the years, a code analysis from an architect or certified interior designer is usually required to determine existing egress paths and fire separations, among other things. The code analysis provides the safety codes officer with the information needed to determine if professional involvement is required, and sometimes even states it directly. To the contractor and owner, this introduces not only the increased costs of professional design, but also the possibility of increased construction costs that those designs might entail above and beyond any original predictions. However, by catching issues at the design phase, it allows the owner and contractor to make educated decisions pertaining to the project and can contribute to overall reduced time and costs compared to finding out during construction and inspection process. This concludes the examples, and as in any decision made by a safety codes officer, professional involvement can be appealed through the Safety Codes Council. Although the cost of appeal is minimal, the length of the appeal process can be prohibitive. The key takeaway is that professional involvement helps protect public safety and the municipality while aligning with the clear requirements of provincial legislation. As this concludes my presentation, which was a general overview of professional involvement, I am open to any questions or comments you may have.
First, I want to thank you for your report. It's very thorough. Appreciate it. When you get a moment, if you could share it with council, I think there's some very valuable information there. I know a couple of my colleagues for sure will have some questions. I have some as well. Council opportunity for discussion and questions to administration, recognizing Councillor Bressie.
Great. Well, thank you. It's definitely something we hear about frequently, and so it's great to have the actual information behind it for when we hear about things like this. Curious, I might be misremembering the slide, but I think that one of the slides said that when it's these complex projects, the jurisdiction may require professional drawings. I'm wondering if you can tell me the nature of that may. Is it actually a may in terms of the city of Grande Prairie actually has jurisdiction on this, but there's so many other acts or regulations or whatever that it really is a shall in practice, even if the legislation itself says may?
Thank you, through the mayor. Complex projects are determined kind of as would you require a professional to do the calculations to do it? There's no actual stating in code that this is considered a complex project.
Okay. And then, so I guess how much latitude is that an inspector to decide this is a complex project, this isn't a complex project?
It's mostly on the inspector, or sorry, thank you, through the mayor. It's mostly through the inspector, but there's kind of standard through the province on what's considered complex and what's not.
Okay. So there's inspector discretion, and is there any municipal or this one of those murky areas where I know that there's independent statutory authority that inspectors can be directed on things, they can't be directed on other things. So I'm trying to figure out, is this truly figuring out that may and what's complex, is that truly inspector by inspector and that's what legislation requires, or is there holistic municipal philosophy on that?
Thank you, through the mayor. It's down to the inspector's discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Before I go to Councillor Plott, I think that really summarizes a lot of the concerns that elected officials are hearing in that interpretation piece. If the legislation is clearly identified, then the proponent has a clear understanding. But when there's when there's opportunities for interpretation, that's where we get into situations that become sometimes a concern. Recognizing Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton, and I appreciate that question from Councillor Bressie. Looking forward to getting the slide deck though, because we do get pinged with this quite a lot, and there's some really good information to explain kind of why that this is doing to it. So I think it's a great information piece for the community as well. You had a slide up there, and actually Mayor Clayton asked you to pause it on that one, and it was kind of showing the uses. And I guess to go to Councillor Bressie's comment on May, if you pop up, there was one in your slide deck that showed kind of the uses that would be required.
Go to it's about slide 4, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And so really, when you look at businesses or personal services, pretty much anything can fall in that. So when I'm getting called from industry, I don't think there's a single way you could change a building without it fitting one of those areas. And so, and that's where I've had business owners that are literally just moving office walls, and they need calculations, they need an architect and engineer. And I appreciate your pinging it back on stuff, but I'm just wondering on that stand data that's hopefully coming, are they going to allow for general contractors? Is that part of a conversation in there at all? Or do you know what that stand data change could look like if it's coming in a couple months?
Thank you, through the mayor. I do not know if they're allowing for general contractors. I think build has been part of it. So hopefully they're allowing general contractors, but once it comes out, we'll know more about it.
And the reason I bring it up with a lot of these examples is if you're worried about heat loss calculations and HVAC, you don't need an architect or an engineer to do that. You can get your HVAC company can supply all that stuff. And so when you're just moving walls around, they're saying, how are we going to make the HVAC work? Your HVAC companies can do those calculations. So they don't need to be a professional, but what's holding it up is because they need to go get an architect to literally draw the wall in. That's taking months. I've had personal experiences of months just getting a wall drawn in. It's not a really fun file for an architect for a small one-off job. So that's more, and I know again, it's not the city's issue, but that's the complaints we're hearing from our side a lot. So if it isn't, to Councillor Bressie's May, why are we trying to enforce it as much as we are? Sometimes, I guess that's my concern is, I appreciate being risk tolerant, but I do see a lot of scenarios where I walk through these buildings with folks and I can't understand why we'd have forced them to do it if it's a May.
You through the mayor. Most, like in your description of like the walls and office renos wouldn't be under the complex project scenario. It's more into the size and determination of a change of occupancy would be when we start forcing that.
But some of these haven't been changing. It's literally been going from office space to office space, moving walls around and needing architects to come in. And I know I forward a few off to Corbin, and they've looked at it. My guess, my mother one is what triggers the May and the shell, and that's the bigger question that I guess industry would like to know, because it is confusing on a lot of that stuff.
Thank you, through the mayor. The only direction we have right now is the size. What we're hoping in that stand data is it allows for those small projects.
Just before you go on, Mr. Burke.
One of the intent beyond this being a motion from council, why we were doing it today, is we'll soon be looking at some of our advocacy priorities. And so as these new guidance is supposed to be in the next few months, one option is for council just to park that part of it and bring this forward as part of the advocacy discussion to determine where this could fit in, as I still think there's a small window for us to have at least provide some input. So that was the intent, to bring it in advance of our advocacy planning.
Yeah, go for it.
And that's actually perfect. That was kind of leading into my next question. When the city's getting, if we're getting pings around here, when the city's getting these from ministry, are we tracking how often this is happening? And appreciate we're getting files through, but are we tracking that this step made them just do a whole bunch of other things versus not? And because I think that'd be good information if we were to be able to send to our ministers and let them know this is some of these are the Mays that are getting flagged, probably because of liability and concerns, which I can appreciate, but are we tracking any of that just to help build our case?
Thank you, through the mayor. No, we're not at this point.
And I appreciate that being an advocacy conversation, because I do think that's one. When we had the Minister of Municipal Affairs at our Night in Edmonton event, we spoke about this specifically, and I think he probably needs a few more letters, but it would be nice if we had more documentation, but I think actually we can. Thank you for the report.
First,
yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. And this is just more of a comment in relaying some previous things that I had heard from small business. and it circles around that interpretation where you could have two different inspectors coming in with two different philosophies and two different outlooks and run into some issues with the second inspector that the first one didn't have. And then I just want to make the comment that when these are small businesses, these delays and extras do cost time and money, which again really impacts a lot of small business. That's why we're bringing this forward. Is there's real life impacts. Red tape is a nice little slogan to say, hey, we want to reduce the red tape, but there is human impact for small business, and that's why it's a concern and why we want to address it. So thank you.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Two questions. The first one's a pretty quick one, but am I understanding that there's reason to think the stand data, I'm surprised that it might be misunderstanding, but usually when things come out, you expect them to make things tighter, but am I understanding correctly there's potential that stand data might actually loosen things up a little bit?
Thank you, through the mayor. There is the expectation that it will loosen up and give better direction on where that line for small projects is.
Great, that's good to know. And then my next question related to this might be for Chief Glavin. I'm not sure who this was before, but I seem to remember a year or two ago we had to do a capital project of going through our design manuals to get new engineering stamps on all of them, and that cost us money. Am I imagining that, or is that something we had to do a few years ago? And if so, is that related to this in any way?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. That's related to the design and construction manual for our capital projects internal to the city and what we hold developers to when they're building new infrastructure like roads or sidewalks. Nothing to do with the building code side. But there is an authentication requirement now for any of the standards that are to be relied upon within that design and construction manual that we are in the process of revising.
But there were new requirements for that were brought in a few years ago that we had to spend some money to comply with. If I remember right, we didn't actually really have to change much. We just had to get engineer stamp on things we didn't previously get engineering stamps on. Am I remembering that right?
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Yes, that were standard changes. Council allocated money, and we're currently enacting those.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying about that's different than inspections, but it very much is related in terms of the whole. I mean, especially in housing, it's very much related those goes on. But I also think just part of the narrative of maybe it's not inspections in this in particular, but even we've seen direct municipal costs of having to get stamps on things you haven't had in the past, which I think is part of our advocacy story.
Yeah, and I think I'll just chime in, and I think that's it from my colleagues for questions, but it's really that piece, our organization has been recognized for red tape reduction and reducing permitting, et cetera. In the last few years, we've definitely changed our approach where we appear, and I hear from industry that we actually are more open for business than we've ever been. We are willing to work with organizations to find solutions, and I think that's really where my colleagues and I are. It's about getting those businesses, the buildings, the investment into the community as quick as possible. And also, we know the more opportunities that are out there are because of successful investments. So when an organization invests in our community, the process goes well, and the investment turns out to be a solid investment, they're more likely to invest again. And so I think that's an important piece as we continue in our approach to recognizing the value of investment in our community is really how we approach all of this. And so really think the advocacy is an important part and looking forward to that update. And so just before I go to Councillor Plott, Mr. Johnson or Chief Glavin or Mr. Bogas, do we need to ask for an update on that stand data, or will it just automatically come to council?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. We're open to any approach, or we certainly don't mind just.
I wouldn't mind having an update when it's finalized. I think it should be more than just a service update. It should probably be an agenda item. Okay, good. Okay.
Mayor Clayton.
All right. Awesome. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. And I guess just to maybe build on that, if we're going to have some kind of, it would be nice to capture how often this is happening. And I think it's a good opportunity for admin to work on the other side of the relationship. What did it cost? What was the delays? And so I think showing some empathy with industry, and I'm not saying that admin hasn't been, because I know firsthand they have been, but I'd like to see us capture more of that. How often is this really happening? Would be important to me. And I'm going to bring an example of one of the buildings that worries me on the other side of it is on an ECDEV case. One of the proponents I was working with was going to change the use of a building with all the extra costs that when I went through the building couldn't understand. He was going to be able to substantially change his rent. And I guess when we collect taxes and we're in a revenue space, everything is based off of cap rates and values. So when a building's value can't go up, we can't charge them more taxes. And that's something that we should be cognizant of, because some of these retrofits, by not allowing them to happen, we're holding a building at an older value too. So not your guys' thing, but I do worry about that being another unintended consequences that we're probably seeing as a city that we don't maybe fully understand.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for your presentation. Appreciate that. And if one of you gentlemen could share that, or Chief Glavin share the slide deck, it would be appreciated. Moving on to item. Do you want? It's up to you. Do you want a motion? Okay. Okay. So moving on to item 4.2. Gonna let them bring it up at the advocacy discussion. Okay. We're going to build a list out of advocacy. Oh, we're good. Okay. You're good? It's already on the oil. Oh. On the oil, we should have a motion that you've received it. I'll leave it to Councillor Plott to bring it up on advocacy as an item. We'll get there.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to accept for information or just put it?
Oh, we don't typically. Sure, if you want it. It's in the report. Okay. So if you want to go on the motion, Councillor Plott.
Sure, I would just move the committee receive this report for information, and thanks again for the information.
So I'll call the question on receiving this report for information. Please vote.
Pressy in favor.
And that carries unanimously. Thanks so much. Moving to item 4.2, we will do an advocacy update on current advocacy, and I'll ask for Councillor Plott to, when we get to a point in the conversation today about new advocacy items, we can bring up something around the presentation we just had. That would be appreciated, but I'll turn this one over to Mr. Burke for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm going to give the brief advocacy update today. As we're looking at soon building a new advocacy plan, I'll just hit some of the highlights here. Our participation in the Fair Electricity Distribution Alliance is continuing. They've launched a public campaign with billboards and some other products, trying to raise an education campaign to raise awareness. The Alliance now has over 30 members, and that is getting some more traction. We were pleased that our neighbors in the county brought forward a motion at a recent Rural Municipalities of Alberta meeting, and they got over 70% support for our advocacy initiatives to bring our distribution costs more in line with the rest of the province. The Mid-Sized City Mayors Caucus is working on their finalizing their advocacy plan and working with aligning with looking for some commonalities around mid-sized cities that we can work with the province on, and so that work is continuing. One note wanted to make was March 26th, Bill 28, the Municipal Affairs and Housing Statutes Amendment, was introduced by the province. This is an omnibus bill with a number of measures in it that we are still analyzing, but it does have some components that deal with property tax, governance, and accountability, and we're still looking at the impacts of how that will be applied within Grande Prairie. Also wanted to make note of a recent federal announcement for the Building Community Strong Fund. This is a new $51 billion fund over 10 years that is focused on a lot of shovel-ready projects. We're just doing an analysis of what the most suitable project would be. A likely candidate right now for us is our multi-sport dome. The eligibility of this program does allow for projects that have already begun, and this aligns with our philosophy of applying for grants for things that we're already doing to make a relief on our taxpayers for projects. So that's one that we will be continuing to update council on as we proceed with that. And that is the brief advocacy update for today.
Perfect. So as mentioned, this report is on current advocacy items. Council will be having a conversation to build out the new advocacy plan. So if my colleagues have any questions on these items, which for advocacy priorities from previous council, items that we're still continually working on. Let's discuss those. I will, the only other piece that I had to add in regard to electricity distribution, for those who weren't aware, the City of Grande Prairie also passed a resolution at Alberta municipalities in the fall. It was more than 70% support. If I recall correctly, Mr. Bressi, it was about 75% support from the rural municipalities, from the urban municipalities. And in addition, we've recently, through our advocacy, heard that Minister Neudorf will be taking this conversation to his colleagues, we expect in the next month. And so we're optimistically waiting to hear an update from his ministry. I can tell you that as an organization, we've taken a lot of time and focus on this, working with other municipalities that are impacted as significantly as we are. And so we're optimistic to see the province in regards to what the potential opportunities are for making any difference. And just any questions on the existing ones, and when we will, as I mentioned, begin to have a conversation about building new ones. And so I look forward to that conversation. And once those new ones are built out, the report will be made public, and we'll look forward to doing regular advocacy work on those items. For now, I don't see anyone in the queue with questions on the existing ones. Councillor, okay, perfect. So nothing else on the existing list. I'm going to move to the next item. Okay.
My apologies. I was just going to make that motion if we could add to this one, if that's
sure. We're going to come out with a fulsome advocacy list. So when we have that conversation, let's just get you in the queue and then.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Moving to item 4.3, grants update, and I'll turn that one over to Mr. Burke as well.
Again, you get the brief update from me. As we've talked about before, our grant philosophy is to look for grant opportunities that can replace municipal tax dollars. So we're looking for grants for things that we're already doing. So that is a positive update today that these are a number of grants for things that are replacing some other funding. Wanted to update that we've recently received $98,000 or $98,400 from supporting psychological health in first responders. This is a provincial grant. This expands a program we've had with our Grande Prairie Fire Department to our Grande Prairie Police Service. So this is an expansion of a program we've currently been funding that was also grant funded. And so this is a positive for our emergency services personnel. We've also received $111,000 through the FREA Fire Smart program. So this is work to help fire smart our community and reduce wildfire possibilities within the city limits. This is a program that has shown some positive results in vegetation management. We've also just received on behalf of GPREP, $25,000 from the government of Alberta to deliver a multi-jurisdictional emergency services exercise. So this is something that is required for us to do these exercises under the Act, and we've received funding on behalf of GPREP to have this exercise, which will benefit emergency preparedness for the whole region. We've also just recently received $335,000 from the government of Alberta. This is over 3 fiscal years to help offset costs for body-worn camera and digital evidence management systems. So this is something that will be a part of Grande Prairie Police Service when they launch in the fall, and the province has come forward with 3-year funding to help offset the cost of that. So this is a really positive initiative for us to have been successful on. One application that we have been unsuccessful was a $200,000 Alberta Community Partnership Grant. This was again on behalf of GPREP, our Regional Emergency Preparedness Group, to develop a volunteer management plan. This is something we'll still continue to look at as part of our membership in that regional organization, but we were unsuccessful in the grant at this time. It is one, though, that we can apply for in subsequent rounds. Some new applications that have been submitted include Community Energy Conservation Program. This is looking at some furnace replacements for the Bandage Paws Animal Rescue that we partner with the county on for just under $5,000, or sorry. Checking the amount here. I don't have the amount here handy. This is something that we would do through regular maintenance that we're looking at getting replaced with conservation funding. We're also application in for the TD Tree Days. This is an annual event to plant 170 trees and shrubs at Ivy Lake. So that's one that we have submitted. And also looking at some funding through the MD of Greenview on looking at some opportunities to help fund our Grande Prairie Museum. They have a program that we can look at for some funding in that. As I mentioned in the advocacy update, there also was the recent federal funding for infrastructure. That's one that we will be submitting here in the near term. And by our next CCW or Council Committee of the Whole update, I expect to have some positive news on some grants involving trees, as well as long-range rec and culture planning. This was a project that we had talked about at budget time. We had deferred to determine whether we would be successful in the grant. We're getting some positive signs. Should we be successful in that grant, we'll bring that project as Council requested back to Council for consideration to make sure we access those funds. But those are ones that are positive signals that we're hoping to get answers on here in the near future.
Great, thanks for that information. Recognizing Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. A question about the GPREP volunteer management plan. I'm wondering what the conversation about that has been at GPREP, and if there's been any conversation about making an ask to fund this with tax dollars if we don't get a grant in the future.
Mark?
I'm not aware if there's been this is recent news that we weren't successful, so I don't know if there's been the opportunity to have that, but that's something that we had believed it was a positive program either way. We were hopeful to get the grant, so I'm sure that'll be a discussion, and I'll make sure that is brought up with them. It is a worthwhile program, and maybe there's a different scale we could do with municipal tax dollars.
So then, I guess with that, I've got desire to see if I can champion this, see if I can find 4 friends to do our contribution in the future. I'm curious in terms of, will this naturally come back to us at some point, or should we be making a motion of some sort if I want to get this on the council radar in the future?
And in addition to Councillor, that part of the question, when you answer, could you tell us why you think, what feedback we got is why we didn't get it? If you know.
Just checking to see if I know the answer to that one.
And so to Councillor Bressie's point, would you like him just to bring it back if there's interest, or what are your thoughts there?
I would say, I don't have any feedback currently on that one, although I know that is a fairly well subscribed program. What I think would be an initial start would be for us to have that discussion at GPREP before we say we're in on something. So if there was a suggestion maybe for a motion for us to raise this at the next GPREP meeting to gauge interest in pursuing would be my suggestion.
Yeah, and just because I know that the Alberta Community Partnership has always been oversubscribed and it was reduced this year, so I'm not surprised. Disappointed, but not surprised to see we didn't see that. And I would like to make a motion that we request the GPREP Management Committee, and massage me if that's the wrong body, but whatever the governance board of GPREP is, discuss the Alberta or discuss a regional volunteer management plan.
So the motion is in order. I'll give it a moment to get in the queue and stuff, but in the meantime, I'll recognize Councillor O'Toole. He may have had a different question.
Well, as I said on that GPREP, the comments were around that we've been applying for it, and it was going to be probably successful. So there was no discussion, really. It was just an application. So anything we can do to get the money, I guess, is better than not having it.
Okay. Any further comments or questions on that particular item? The motion is in your e-scribe, directing the administration to request that GPREP board discuss a regional volunteer management plan. That okay? All right. Comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question.
Councillor Thiessen in favor.
That carries unanimously. Any other questions on the grant update? I did have a question. You mentioned that we will have some information in the near future in regards to a grant opportunity with additional trees. If we are successful in that grant, will we be able to add those trees to schedule planting this season?
Should we be successful, we'll bring probably some information back. We did have some grant-funded trees in our capital plan, and I just haven't had the chance. We just got this early indication for us to know if this was actually already pre-funded. I think a portion of it was already committed, but we'll bring that back and determine whether timing, yes, possible. Perfect.
Thanks for that. Moving on to item 4.4, Hughes Lake servicing, and I'll look to Chief Glavin for introduction.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. So the city has previously received an application within the Hughes Lake area for an outline plan that was proposing dry lot services, so private on-site services, as opposed to connecting into water and the sanitary system. That didn't go forward as it didn't meet the requirements from the ASP or our MDP. Committee then directed administration to bring forward some proposed strategies and some other potential options to allow development to occur in within the ASP. With that, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Johnson and Mr. Coney.
Sorry, before you start, something you said there, Chief Glavin, I just wanted clarification. So tell me at the beginning there, you said something about it didn't qualify before, so we were looking to do opportunities on self-containing plans within Hughes Lake, and what didn't go ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Essentially, where the previous, and Mr. Johnson can expand on this, but essentially where the application for development occurred previously, it's at the bottom end of the system or at the beginning of the system. And if we allowed dry lots there, it makes it very difficult to service lots further upstream from that, as there would be no infrastructure in place for them to do so, and they would have to drag that infrastructure up there at their own cost, which would make the further you go upstream less and less economic to develop in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. On August 19th, administration presented a report regarding an application for a new outline plan in the Hughes Lake area structure plan area. The subject property is located west of the airport, north of 100th Avenue or Highway 43, and east of Range Road 70. The plan proposed dry lot development as developer-funded extension of water and sanitary services required to service the area is not feasible, and this also included interim water and servicing extensions. Both the municipal development plan and the area structure plan consider dry lot development as an interim servicing measure, but not as a permanent servicing option. The report identified a number of steps that would need to be taken in order to allow interim servicing methods. Council Committee of the Whole received the report for information and then further directed administration to bring back a report with information on how to proceed with the steps identified in the report. Those steps are shown on the slide. Interim servicing is an incredibly complex issue. There are significant legal, financial, technical, and operational issues. There's a significant amount of work that would be required in order to create an interim servicing strategy. This work would require legal consultation as well as the services of an engineering consultant. No funding has been identified for this work. Should Council wish to proceed, administration would bring a capital budget request forward. No recommendation to proceed with this work is being advanced at this time. As such, it is recommended that Council receive this report for information. Thank you, Mayor Clayton, and I'm open to any questions Council may have.
Thank you. Recognizing Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'm just curious if there's been a look at, and I appreciate we're trying to not have bare lots, but when I look at the size of Hughes Lake, unless somebody really gets the ball rolling, it's going to be hard to get it up the stream in a way. So when I look at that application, do we know how much water they were going to use before we say it's not an option? And I guess where I'm going with that, if this was a massive industrial shop with 2 or 3 toilets and a sink because their staff's using that and they're not washing trucks, but they want a massive lay down yard and something like that. What would be the risk to us of allowing that to happen, I guess? Because, you know, if it's a whole quarter section or a big piece of land that ends up going along the highway for that sort of stuff, they're not using a lot of water. It's happening in the county right across where they're hauling water in. And so it's kind of weird because the county can do it right across the other side of the road, hauling water in. So I'm just curious why we're not interested in that, I guess. I appreciate we got to do steps, but has it been, is it just purely because it would be all work required, or I'm not seeing the risk, I guess.
Sure. Through the mayor, 2 points to that one. One is that if there were a significant development proposal that was, say, like a single development or a single parcel, it's entirely possible that it could be accommodated with some policy in the municipal development plan that allows for some development to occur in advance of an area structure, an outline plan. Okay. So there is some opportunity. If that significant development fell outside of that policy, but we felt that there was merit to it, we would certainly take steps as opposed to just saying, no, it doesn't comply with the policy. And then finally, one other comment that I'll make is that this is a complicated matter when it comes to approving an entire development where, as Chief Glavin noted, it's about the future serviceability of the remainder of the lands and the ability to then tie the area that you've already approved as dry lot development into the future network. So one of my predecessors who spent quite a bit of time researching this topic came to the conclusion, and ultimately this is where we were at when we presented in August, is that interim servicing is potentially so challenging that if we are to approve an outline plan like what was proposed, then it's almost like you're just setting the future for the rest of the area. So if dry lot development is an ultimate servicing solution that council's open to for this area, that's an option. But we also need to recognize that future serviceability of the area will be severely compromised by the decisions we're making by allowing the dry lot development.
I guess if I can speak a little bit, I just don't want to miss the market. And I guess where I'm really worried about this is if you go out in the county, folks are putting in wells, they're putting in septic fields, they're doing their things. And yeah, it's expensive, but you know, you can put up $100,000 doing services and put up 10 of those, and it's $1 million. You'll never spend less than $1 million bringing all that pipe and all those other things in. So it's actually not cheaper for industry. It's costing more to bring in, to do non-dry lots. And I guess for me, it just concerns me that, and I guess maybe I'll put some thought in and maybe a motion coming out of this, but I'm more worried about, well, if it's a water flow issue, sure. You could say that's a certain minimum water flow. You have to, if you're over this amount of water flow, then we can't say yes. Or if you, that would be one for me, because literally some of these shops have a couple of toilets and a sink running out of them. So there's not like they're creating a lot of water and sewer and sanitary issues. And if people want to be buyer beware that that whole quarter section is, you can only have this much water flow because it's off of a well and a septic field. I don't know how we wouldn't want to do that. And I guess where I'm going the other way is we don't have to go back into those areas. And in essence, and from a tax perspective, from us on a revenue side, we don't have to go in and deal with any of the pipes and any of the infrastructure ever again. That's not ours. So I'd be scared to not have the revenue side, knowing that there's not a lot of expenses coming out if it's set up as a bare land condo when they deal with their own servicing within it. We don't have to actually go back into those as much. So I guess for me, I'm just trying to get my head around the risks reward, because I think there's a lot of reward we're missing out on because we're worried about the risk side. But have we thought about a minimum water requirement being a trigger of some kind?
Johnson.
Through the mayor, there certainly has been plenty of discussion about required fire flows for development. And if you dig into some of the preliminary work that's been done on the interim servicing, there is discussion about special land use districts which provide for, let's call them low risk uses, perhaps in line with some of your examples. So that is an option, but it's not just a matter of applying that land use district and calling it a day. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on top of that with respect to work with fire and fire response, the on-site services that are required to provide fire with the response, all those standards would need to be developed and so on. So it's not simply a land use bylaw exercise, and it has been explored to some extent.
Okay. One last, if I can. I'm just curious, then, if there was how would we signal currently? Because really the answer is no now with a whole bunch of changes we have to do. How could we signal that if industry come with the right plan that showed them fire flows were there through lagoon systems, septic systems, and had their flow, and they met all those criteria, but it wasn't coming from an Aquaterra pipe coming in and out? How could we signal that we'd be open for business for that, I guess? Because I do think there's opportunities like that out there. And our current framework, industry is not going to come in doing all that work knowing there's not a chance. So is there a way that we can allow industry to come in with options without changing all this stuff, knowing that or would we have to change all that stuff before you could allow it?
Mr. Johnson.
Through the mayor, I would refer back to the MDP policy that does allow for some development. That if we were presented with inquiries, so we're not saying no to inquiries. This one presented a little bit of a different example as opposed to a specific development. This is development of a quarter section, and that's why we reported to committee. If it were a single development, we would have handled it, and it possibly would have been built, as there have been other developments built in the area in accordance with the policy. So it's not project specific. It's an entire development of a quarter that this framed this conversation. So I would like to take the opportunity to assure council that we're not just turning away people and saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, because it's not serviced. We work within the framework that we have. We've received positive feedback on that. I believe it is a very open approach, and the policy is very welcoming. So I'm not concerned about losing development in that context. It's just that this one was an entire quarter section proposing dry lot development without any accommodation for future servicing, and that's what sparked this conversation. So they're two separate matters in my mind.
So if that quarter section, though, could prove out all of its servicing without Aquaterra and water flows, would that be an option for it?
Sorry, I'm going to jump in here. So in the report, it identifies a couple of policy items that I think encompass this. And to your point, Mr. Johnson, it was more the size of the piece, and the policy clearly identifies that a maximum parcel size of 4 hectares would be considered, is how I'm interpreting policy 4.2, that in the case of industrial uses, the landowner can subdivide maximum 4 parcels with a quarter section at a maximum parcel of 4 hectares. Your point being that it was the whole quarter section, but in our policy, it identifies a size that's appropriate, correct?
That's correct, Mayor Clayton.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I guess to Councillor Platt's point, I also, in your report, it identifies that the city may explore alternative urban water and sanitary servicing methods and design standards. Because we may explore those, I don't know the need for servicing strategies as identified in the second document. It already says that we may explore them, which, right, leaves the door open. It's really if you think council wants to do more significant work for interim servicing, cost recovery, et cetera, that we would do additional work, because the current policy covers anything that we've dealt with to date.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yes, I guess, could you repeat the exact question? Like, I understand.
Sure. So,
what...
you're identifying servicing strategies. I don't know if we necessarily need them, because the policy currently has some parameters that hasn't prohibited us from development to date.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yes, a number of the interim servicing strategies require extension of services.
Right.
So they would be interim service extensions, which are fairly expensive, and those are outlined in the August report. The dry lot concept is entertained as an option, but I don't think it was ever envisioned that it would be an entire outline plan area allowed as dry lot. And as Coney had pointed out, there's if we were to reduce the fire flows in those areas, we'd have to work with the fire department to see what new equipment they may need to acquire to fight fires in that context.
I guess so. Currently in the MDP, it says that in the rural service area, we'll invest opportunities for key infrastructure investment to attract the highest best use of development. Also says that the city may explore alternative urban water and sanitary service methods and design standards. Also says the size that the development opportunity that is available. So right now, based on those items that you highlighted in your report, I don't think we're getting in the way of development. You also are providing other opportunities if council is interested in exploring those. They come at a cost, obviously, but if council is looking at something that's contrary to what's in the municipal development plan, those are what the strategies you've offered. But to date, we're not in the way of development.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. As I was reading this, it was kind of like a tennis match in my mind where just batting it back and forth and really wasn't coming up with anything, because I think for me, it's way too general and way too costly. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about 3/4 to a mile is what would potentially be looking from the airport over to that quarter.
Mr. Johnson?
2.4. Through you, Mayor, I believe it's about 2.4 kilometers to a water service.
Okay.
124th Street.
Okay. Because to me, eventually we would have to put quality water and sanitation in order to phase that out heading north as well. So I guess if we're backing it up to a bigger picture and not necessarily looking at a specific business or a specific quarter, thank you, appreciate that. To me, I guess I'd like to see a phased plan that could be somewhat flexible, because I can see that this could take decades ultimately to develop, but it all starts with a first step. And is it correct that this is anticipated that it would be about $6.5 million to do this first phase?
Oh, sorry, I just want to clarify your question. Actually for the city to invest in the infrastructure, because in the report, the servicing strategies could be as simple as preparing a transition framework for ultimate servicing without investing into the infrastructure. Mr. Johnson?
Through the Mayor, that's correct, yes. Well, one of the options is dry lot until servicing arrives, but most of them are based on the idea of interim servicing. With respect to costs, I did include that in the August 19 report. I didn't include it in the most recent one, but in 2021, extension of interim services to the subject properties, so those shown on the slide, was estimated to cost approximately $6.5 million, and ultimate services over $20 million.
Yeah. So I guess I'm today looking at 6.5, where 5-10 years down the road we'd be looking at the balance. I know it would be more. One of the issues that I had, and this was a business owner that was actually out in the county, and their complaint is that they put in their own services and then they were required to hook up to Aquaterra, which basically was another duplicated cost to that business. And so that was one of their issues that they had, and use some colorful language in describing that. So those are the kind of things that ultimately I'd want to avoid. And for me, I just like to do things right the first time. And so is that one of the options on the table, I guess, is to do that 2.4 kilometers or whatever it is in $6.5 million?
Through the Mayor, it certainly would help achieve, it would certainly bring the proposed development closer in line with our usual development standards, but the challenges of ultimate servicing for that area still remain. So if you imagine an area that's built out just imagine like a rural industrial park, every lot's developed with dry lot. Yes, theoretically in the future, the city could come along and say, and now we're running services all through this area. You're ripping up all the roads, all the driveways, everything, put services down in the ground, and then demanding a property owner to tie in. And that's when you get the colorful language that you spoke of.
Yeah.
And these challenges, so not only the challenges of like, how do you install and force someone to tie in later on, cost recovery, there's a number of challenges that are out there that made my predecessor come to the conclusion that it's either dry lot or ultimate servicing.
Yeah.
Interim is extremely challenging.
Yeah, and that's basically where I sit, but to me there's too many gray areas. Is there demand for it?
Right. One other point I'd like to throw out through the mayor, if you don't mind, is that, you know, certainly, as I alluded to, administration pays attention to policy and respects it and whatnot, but if good development or something that makes sense is proposed, we're not just going to slam the door and say, nope, the book says this, and so until there's pipes in the ground, go away. So if we use this development example, and it was way up in the very, very northwest quadrant of the rural service area and considerably further away from the services, and however that's developed wouldn't affect the serviceability of the future adjacent areas, then, you know, perhaps when we brought it forward, we would have had a considerably different position. The position of this proposed development is key to this whole conversation, in that it, as noted, it is the lower portion of the entire system. And so, like I said, if you do entertain alternative servicing, at some point in the future, you need to rip everything up.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, guys.
Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I guess with Hughes Lake, and it's just one of those things we all want to see happen at some point. But when I look on the map, maybe you guys can, if you don't mind, I think it's page 5 where it kind of shows the overall area. At some point, we're going to have to pick an entry point into where we want to service. And I guess for me, I don't see this being the entry point, personally. There's not a lot of serviceable land that's actually useful there, that we're stuck by an airport. There's maybe 2 quarters that can actually get serviced, which would cause looping all the way around. And so when I think about the potential of $20 million to service potentially 2 quarters, I don't think that gets developed, to be honest. I just don't think you can put that much money into infrastructure to ever make money off your quarter. So they're stagnant pieces of land, in my opinion. So I guess we're looking at Hughes Lake and how we'd ever service it. It feels like to me we got to go up somewhere along 116th and start heading west that way. I don't think this is the spot you really want to head west and think you're looping past an airport and a bunch of land that's going to be really just for us. So if I had an appetite to say I have no problem, because I do want to see this as dry lots and not see a stagnant development, are we able to go back to the developer and say, can you prove out a dry lot development that would meet all fire flows, all those things? And if they can, if they're willing to do that, I have no problem approving that personally. I think that's where we need to be heading. We're stagnating. Look at the purple on that map. This is one little thing in there. It's all sitting there unserviced. We want this to work. We want somebody to put up to $10 million to go service a quarter section, or they can go right across that red line in the county and do dry lots. And so I think we have to be realistic about if we want to develop this land or not. And I'm not saying it's not right to not want to have everything loop in. I guess for me, if I'm in a shop and I flush my toilet or I turn water on and off, whether it's going through Aquitare's lines or not, is really irrelevant to me if I'm out in a shop, especially if I got to upfront that much money to service it all and get it ready. Those are big dollars. And to me, that's what makes these projects not viable. So could we have the option for this proponent to come back and say, I can show you, I can make it all work for dry lots, other than it's not Aquaterra and you're never going to plug into it?
Through the mayor, I don't think that would be a question that the developer would answer. It would be more the individual builder, because all of the developments, like the developer is just providing the land, and then any builder that comes on site would be proposing their dry lot servicing. Now, yes, it is entirely possible that if council wished to do that, that it could be entertained as dry lot, essentially giving up on the idea that it would ever be serviced in the future. Quite a bit of the work that we're outlining in this report would still need to occur, primarily as it relates to fire response and the land use districts that could apply to it. And then we would I feel obligated to consult with all the upstream landowners in the area to advise that this is a decision that is being considered and it would affect the future serviceability of their area.
That's all fair. I just feel like if we're going to do this, we're not going to see a lot of development out there. That's all. And I wish we could find a way around it. Because I think if we're not going to get creative, we're going to see less land sit there stagnant and not see us monetize the value on it. And that's just a concern for me.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. I think what I'm struggling to understand here, squinting maps, looking at all that, is there's a big difference between allowing dry lots at the end of where we contemplated servicing so that they only impact them, and there's a big difference between in the middle of servicing, because then they're cutting off those upstream. And my apologies if it's been presented somewhere and I'm just not finding it, but I'm not understanding how much or what land gets stagnated from future servicing if we allow this.
Mr. Johnson.
Through the mayor, I believe I have some slides on that. I do, yes. Just 1 minute.
Moreover, we have sanitary. Water, sanitary. I think I saw. Oh, that's it? No. But this one was. Okay. Sanitary is either low pressure, internal.
Through the mayor, this might be the best map that I can provide at the moment, which shows the catchment area for both the interim water and wastewater servicing for the area. And I believe that ultimate servicing would follow those same catchment areas. Ultimate servicing concepts water. Okay, here. I have it in my. We're able to do. What's not? Okay. So I do have a map in the August report. It's attachment number 4, ultimate servicing concepts, water and sanitary. And it shows, it basically follows the area structure plan boundary, the same boundary that's shown here.
I'm just having trouble looking between the two maps. I think I know where this property is on this map, but I'm not 100% sure.
So on the one on the screen, it's to the left of the blue area that's shaded. Right there, yeah.
So I guess what I'd be kind of curious to learn more about is are these pipes in future build out constantly that way? Because that's how they have to be built due to geography and the way the land is, or are there other options? Where for me, if there's options to kind of leapfrog or bypass this land, so that if we say, hey, if the developer wants to say, hey, this land is going to be dry lot only, and it's forever going to be dry lot, and we know that's got impacts on what we're allowed to build, there's some fire flows, blah 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 blah. If that's what they want to say to their own land, have at it as far as I'm concerned. If we can find a way to not stagnate hookup of additional land, and And I'd love to see some exploration done of, are there ways to make it so that they actually can do this without impacting other landowners?
Through the mayor, I believe it, to answer your first question, yes, the servicing does follow topography, so it's the most feasible option. Topography can be overcome by way of lift stations and whatnot, but that's all expensive. And then to answer the other question, while it is possible that you could approve this as a dry lot development, essentially what you would be doing is reducing the amount of clients that would be tying into it and cost recovery and whatnot. So you'd be extending all those services a quarter section past in the future without any recovery.
Yeah, and yeah, again, it's complex, but I guess to Councillor Platt's point, if development happens in the county anyways, we've lost those. Anyways, yeah, it's a complicated one. Thank you.
Yeah, my comment in regards to it happening in the county, I think is, I understand that it's happening in an existing area that, like, this lot would set sort of future framework of this entire region, and that's my only concern. If they go across the road to an existing industrial site that's already been identified and the future lay of the land is a little more clear, then I have less concern. But this appears to be, this is the catalyst for other stuff. And the first kick at it is dry lot. It's concerning to me. Councillor Platt.
Sorry, maybe I'm misreading that.
Oh, I apologize. I'll get to you. Go ahead, Councillor Platt.
When I look at this proposed area, though, it looks like the water line's actually heading along 116th and then up in that way. So is it a looping? It probably is some sort of a looping system. And I'm going to keep coming back to, we're only talking about potentially 3/4 sections of land that are be serviceable around the airport to get to Hughes Lake on that whole corner. And that's where my concern, I appreciate we don't do dry lots, but there's not a lot of serviceable land from there to the highway and across before Hughes Lake. So, if this was somewhere else in there along 116th, I would be having the same comment, but I don't know how I'm missing something. It looks like the blue line goes along 116th Street and then it kind of cuts in and it heads up in that direction. It's not along 100th Ave that we really, unless we want it for this development, I don't think it's listed on there as proposed water looping. The purple line goes up and then it kind of winds up on the other side of Hughes Lake, which makes sense. There's really not a lot of quarters on that corner, and that's where my head's more going, do we allow a dry lot on this side and we go service land over there because we give industry an option, because it's just a lot of money to put up 40 or 50 shops for pipes and services. And quite honestly, as an Aquaterra one, this concerns the other way. Do we really want them to be running that much pipe and servicing for maybe 50 customers down the road? Because that pipe probably doesn't make money for Aquaterra then either. So I worry about us wanting to have Aquaterra services everywhere when it doesn't financially make sense. And I don't think these 3/4 personally make financial sense. So that's why I'm going to keep pushing. I think dry lots make a lot of sense here.
Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Sorry, can you hear me?
We can, yep.
Yeah. My concern is I like the concept of dry land, but I'm concerned about what Joe is, and I want to ask Joe, is this sterilization and what of the land north of the property. If that cuts everything off, then all that property is not serviceable. Is that right, Joe?
Mr. Johnson?
Through the mayor, it's not a matter of it not being serviceable. It's just being ever financially, realistically possible. Within a blank check, it certainly could be. That's not a problem. It's just a matter of the way that the development framework is here with respect to extension of services and whatnot. No developer, I couldn't imagine a developer front-ending the extension of services for an entire quarter section just to get to their quarter section. So it would disincentivize upstream development of the quarter section for anything that for any development that wanted to be serviced.
Yeah. So skirting the side of the property on the one side closest to the airport would basically, there's no recoverable cost. Is that what you're saying?
Through the mayor, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I don't have anyone else in the queue. Both documents in your package, recommendations are to receive them for information. I'll open it up and look to business arising. And if no one has other changes, perfect. Thank you. Councillor Thiessen.
You're welcome, Mayor Clayton. I would move that we receive the report for information. Speaking to this, I understand Councillor Palat's concerns about trying to move land here and have viable developmental properties. But listening to the reasoning Mr. Johnson, Mr. Coney have given in regards to fire flows, stagnation of land, and the exorbitant costs of potentially leapfrogging over one of these types of developments of a dry lot land, I think they've done their homework and their research. Honestly, we've talked about this land and how we get it moving for a while. We've talked about building pump houses, drawing pipe down there. What really sold me on it was Councillor O'Connor's last question. It's not just to the east or the west, it's also to the north of the property as well, that we may be asking more from another developer in the future who may want to put something there. So unless we're looking at dry lots for that whole area, I don't see a feasible or financial reason to do anything but take the advice given by our experts. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm going to take Councillor Thiessen's motion as on the Richmond View outline plan servicing, just so the clerk's aware, not on both documents. Okay. So discussion or debate on the motion to receive the Richmond View outline plan servicing administrative report for information. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just a couple of questions for admin. Can you remind me what year we annexed all the Hughes Lake land, or we did the annexation? Was it 2014?
2016, through the mayor.
And how many developments have we approved since 2016 in the Hughes Lakes area?
Through the mayor, by developments, do you mean individual projects, like
a scale like this? Like a large development, not a one-off, or
through the mayor, we have not approved any outline plans in the Hughes Lake area.
So just throwing out there, it's 10 years we haven't approved a plan, so we got to start getting creative.
So, and I just wanted to correct my last comment. This motion would be in regards to receiving the Hughes Lake servicing report for information. Okay, the other one, not the other one. Okay, so Councillor Plott, Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. One of the things as we have this discussion is I go back to growing up. My dad had a business that was just on the outskirts of Edmonton. And at that time, it was about 3 or 4 blocks outside the city. Today, it is well within the city. So I think we need to look big picture or long term, because again, if we do dry lots all through here, I think, again, as Mayor Clayton said, that sets a bad precedent where I look at the development around this area today, and it's got mixed shopping. Yeah, there's some industrial, but there's some warehouses through there too. And I think the reverse could happen, that if we don't put proper water in there, industry and business that need water won't set up there because it's not adequate enough, and it would be too costly to leapfrog it. So as I said before, I think ultimately we need to start looking at possible phases, but as demand warrants. And so, yeah, I'll support this motion from Councillor Thiessen.
No, there's already a motion on the floor, but I'm going to take an opportunity to set one question, maybe for the city manager or Chief Glavin, in regards to the strategies that were laid out. The number 3, the establishing funding mechanisms for cost recovery and or future infrastructure upgrades. It identifies that legal consultation would be required. I'm wondering how much and what does that entail? Like, I'm interested in, like, Councillor Plott's point. I get it. We want to do something with this. I don't think there's a huge demand. There's not a lineup of people looking to do stuff here, and we've turned them away, but I do want to set us up for success. So what does it look like for establishing funding mechanisms for cost recovery and future infrastructure? Is this something our own legal counsel can do? Is it an extensive project? What are we looking like on that? Chief Glavin.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. On the interim servicing side, not something we have a ton of experience with. So this would be likely farmed out, would be external legal investigating that portion.
I appreciate Councillor Thiessen's motion. I'm interested in not all of the recommendations or alternatives that's pointed out in the report. I am interested in that. I'm curious what the funding mechanisms could be. I'm also I really like the strategic plan and the coordination of infrastructure alignment and connections, which item number 5 in the report. And it says that it would be a broader scope in regards to consultant work. But how big of a project is that? The report lays out 5 things. Is it all 5 if council's interested? It is, eh?
Through the mayor, yes, with the, as writing this, it was the intention that if we are to explore interim servicing, these are the 5 steps. As
if we're not interested in interim servicing, but I want to know what a funding mechanism looks like.
For ultimate servicing?
Right.
Yes, okay. There are some comments on it about options such as off-site levies, city front-ending infrastructure with future cost recovery. Yeah. Yeah. So it would be exploring those in more detail. Yeah. Obviously, we do have some experience with levies, but for front-ending for a specific area, we don't have experience in that. Yes, if your question was what exactly would we do for that, we would be, I would be guessing we would be going external for both the legal and for the legal side of things, yes.
And remind me, I think you mentioned what this shopping list of work that needs to be done would cost. Remind me what you said you thought.
Through the mayor, I don't believe I have a number in here because I think it would be an incredibly hard thing to estimate.
Okay. There we go. For now, I'm happy. I'm not happy. I will support the motion to receive this information. I do agree with Councillor Plott. I think this is something this council needs to keep on top of. I think that there are opportunities here, and albeit they will cost money for us to get to a point where we potentially could see development in this. It's not out of the question, in my opinion. We need to look at an ultimate servicing strategy. I think we need to look at what the future of this land looks like. I also don't want us to lose opportunities. That being said, 1/4 section going to our neighbors is unfortunate, but it's not the end-all be-all for me because I want to see the bigger plan. So something to keep in mind for, I think council should really keep on top of this servicing plan as presented. So I will support the motion to date, but for me, this project is not on a shelf. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just maybe a final thought for a minute. It might be wise for us to start tracking how many permits are pulled in the county that are on dry lots. I know of several projects that have went up last year on dry lots out in Dimsdale area. And my concern with our council right now, to be honest, is that we keep hoping that these things are going to happen. There's only so much industry that wants to be along the highway. And yes, we're growing, but we haven't grown in 10 years and we might hit a little run where we grow again. If you miss that, it could be another 10 or 15 years. And so that's an awful lot of revenue we've lost for our community over this. And so I'm really worried about the revenue. We all know the value of industrial growth. We haven't seen it. And if the county is getting their share of it and we can complain about it because they're allowing dry lots, because it's cheaper barrier to entry and it's along highways like a major road like this would be, which would be a great set for something like this. There's only so many of those proponents out there. So that's my concern on it. So I would appreciate if we maybe just started, if we could, just start looking at how many of the lots are being sold in the county for dry lots. I think it's a bigger market than we realize.
And I would have to disagree. I don't think there's a multiple list of items that we've lost. And I also recognize that we're an urban center, and I don't know if lay down yards are what the city of Grande Prairie is looking for. Councillor Thiessen to close.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead before Councillor Thiessen closes.
Yeah, thank you. I was just a quick question for Joe. Is there a possibility that whatever development could there be a right of way put through the property? And I know that that would cost some money, but then it wouldn't sterilize the access to go north if the city wanted to do so.
Mr. Johnson?
Through the mayor, that's certainly front and center on administration's mind if we were to move forward with reviewing a plan like this. I would like to take the opportunity to remind council that it's not just a matter of ensuring that you have the right-of-ways, it's also the future tie-ins to every individual lot. So the right-of-ways would get the services through the subdivision and into the next one, but you're still ultimately having to rip up the road right-of-way or have some sort of a PUL scenario in between all of the lots for future servicing. And so that conversation did happen with the applicant of the plan that we discussed. And it was at that point that their response was that their ultimate design was dry lot and that they didn't have an interest in adjusting the plan to provide for future services.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thiessen to close.
Thanks again, Mayor Clayton. Well, I'll state, sounds like it may be going in the direction of the motion. I don't disagree with Councillor Palat. I think there are definite opportunities that we can have for looking into and servicing this. I just don't think this leapfrog attempt is worth it. It's not worthwhile for the city development. And our subject matter experts, I know that they work really hard to try to make every development flow. And over the years, they've gotten better and better and better at that. And so they're not saying no just because they're putting their foot down. They're saying no because they're looking out for the best interests of the city of Grande Prairie. And even though that might be some industrial tax base and the county may be picking up business, when we're talking about dry lots, the county and the city we really do a lot of things differently. A lot of the dry lot development is out of necessity for the county in order for them to develop in their lands that are pretty far away from rivers or water pipes. Even something as simple as snow removal, it's a totally different strategy. We go from curb and gutter and snow hauling in the city to just plow it off into the ditches in the county. So it's totally different. But where I'm leaning on again is what Councillor Berg said earlier at the top, where his dad grew up in Edmonton and built his business 3 blocks from the city limits. And then next thing you know, he's right smack dab in the middle of the city. Same thing can be said for Grande Prairie. In the 1960s, no council or administration thought we would ever build beyond the east side rail line. And here we are today, and we're struggling with some developments on that east side rail line because we never imagined we would go there. So we got to be conscious and aware of our 20-year plan and our 20-year focus. That's what we're elected for, not for a 4-year term, not to get one industrial development on a quarter section. We're here to look out for the best interests of our community going forward for decades. And so we have to have that type of foresight. And I don't think that this plan that we're banding back and forth debating upon is the plan that's going to set us up for future success. So for all those reasons, I do think, Councillor Platt, there's a plan. I do think we have the in-house expertise to figure out a solution with us, but today is not that time. And for me, timing in a lot of cases is everything. And it's in fact more than money, even though the saying is time is money. I think there's a more artful way to deal with this, and the right time will come. Thank you.
All right. That's Councillor Thiessen's close. We'll call the question. That carries unanimously. Moving on to item 4.5, vacant airport land servicing. I'll turn that over to Chief Glavin for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Council had directed administration to report back on the cost of servicing a few different areas that were identified in the study that was done by MXD. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Johnson and Mr. Coney, who are going to go over with rough idea of what it would look like to cost. But there's a significant amount of work necessary to be performed in advance of that to get down to what a true costing would be. But this will give a little better understanding of process and the order of magnitude.
Mr. Johnson. Or Mr. Coney, sorry.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Just give me 1 second to set up. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Connor Coney, Development Engineering Manager, and I'm here to present on vacant airport land servicing. Last June, Council Committee of the Whole passed a motion asking for additional information on the cost of service in the specific areas identified in the Grande Prairie Area Economic Framework. This slide is taken from the Grande Prairie Airport Area Economic Development Framework. The 4 areas listed in the motion are circled in red. The total area represents 375 acres. The Northwest Area Structure Plan development concept areas listed previous slide outlined in green. The subject areas listed in the motion are currently zoned AP Airport District. These are located within the Northwest Area Structure Plan. The Northwest Area Structure Plan map is presented here. It should be noted that area structure plans are limited in detail. Outline plans have more detail and focus on development concepts. No development concepts or associated engineering studies are carried out at this stage. An outline plan is needed to be completed so administration can determine a cost to service these lands. Costs associated with servicing the subject lands will also be affected by the timing of development of adjacent lands. The exact type of development plan for these areas as well as the development needs are unknown. This is a work associated cost estimated at $250,000 to $300,000 that it will take to answer the motion. Currently no budget to undertake this work. I would be open to any questions, comments, or discussion.
Mr. Burke. Sorry, Mr. Burke.
So just some additional context in how we've been considering this. When we did the economic development plan with MXD, that was some aspirational look at this, and we continue to work with the Airport Commission on that. The intent of that initiative wasn't to look at servicing all of it, but to look at identifying some key target areas that we could look at to enter or to consider this land. And that's work that has been going on. We do have one proponent that we're working with that would be in an area that would be easier to service without servicing all of it. And I think that's probably a better approach here as we're looking at this, is not to consider what would it take to service all of this. It's to, as opportunities come forward, are there ones that make sense that are a more manageable size? And we do have one that we are in discussions with, and so like that isn't a dream either. But it's ways for us to look at how can we move that plan along at a more incremental, manageable, based on specific key projects. So that's something I would just add into. It's not that we shouldn't do anything. It's that there are other alternatives than just servicing all of it, and that's to look at more manageable projects and not leapfrogging, but building off existing infrastructure.
Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. So 2 quick questions. One somewhat related to the last one. Who currently, or does the airport terminal, is that on Aquaterra water and sewage at the moment?
Burke?
Correct. Aquaterra is completely on, the airport is completely on Aquaterra, as are the industrial in that area. You'll recall that we have had previous discussions about the lagoon that they previously were on, that there is a plan now in the works to decommission, as they have not been on that for a number of years.
Okay, and then I guess my next one, and I'm relatively new to the Airport Commission, but I'm questioning or wondering why the city would be on the hook for the $300,000, even though it's on airport lands.
Mr. Burke.
as the city ultimately owns the airport, we could, if we were looking to spur development in that area, none has come forward to date. Saying that, there is interest in that area in off of existing infrastructure, near existing infrastructure. I would say if I were to do a return on investment, looking at building something off of something in partnership with a developer is a better use of money than looking at a study to build out the whole network without an anchor tenant. So having an anchor buyer for lease of this land would be my recommendation for a focus right now.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just to kind of build off of Councillor Berg's question a little bit, would it cost much, or is that something I don't know if we could do in-house to just know what it would look like to extend the aquaturist services and storm, water and sewer to AN1 and AN2? Just looking at those lots more specifically, or is that without going into a whole outline plan, just knowing how much, if a proponent come in, what would it cost us to get servicing over to those two potential areas?
As they're considering that answer, like that was some of the work we did on some land that was adjacent to some currently serviced land, so we were able to do that, some more limited modeling, but I'll leave it to our subject matter experts here.
Mr. Johnson.
Through the mayor, the same situation that Mr. Coney provided is for the same would occur with a smaller area, and that we still don't have a development concept. So we don't know what servicing would be required. We have no idea if there would be what size of pipe, if lift stations would be required, anything. So the first step, which is what his report is outlining, is that you come up with a development concept and then you base your cost estimates off of the development concept. And we don't have the development concept.
Just curious, I guess, is it possible for, and maybe that's, I'm not sure if MDX could show the proponents available and start looking at what would they need for water requirements? I don't know if there's a way to work backwards on it. It's just, I'm kind of have a hard time spending on planning without knowing the proponent, but it would be nice if we did get a proponent not to go, well, it could take us 4 months to find out how much it's going to cost to service you too.
Burke.
Yeah, actually, I think we're aligned on that. We're not suggesting to spend this money either. As we did with the one proponent that I'll say is kicking tires, we were able to come up with a relatively high level cost estimate fairly quickly. It wasn't to a level of detail that you would want to build on, but there is some formulas we can use if we know what they need. That's the key for us. Is we wouldn't recommend proceeding with any further expenditure money on this until we have at least one project in that vicinity that we know what they need and we can start building that out from there.
That's great. Thank you.
Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Just building off on Wade Palat's and I have CAO Burke, I think answered that question. We need to know what the size and the proponent, but if there is an opportunity to extend water to development on the Hughes Lake, I think that would be something to look forward in the future. I know it's farther out than what we'd want, but he answered my question. Thank you.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Not a question, but a plug I want to put in for my colleagues on a conversation we're going to be having in Q3. And if it happens, it would be a very long-term play. But the expense getting stuff out here is one of the reasons why I'm excited to have conversations about it. Is there potential to do an urban reserve in this area? Because I think that could potentially open up capital that isn't available otherwise on, especially in LE1, LE2, 3, and 4. So that's a conversation that's coming to us Q3, and this infrastructure is a big reason why I want to have that conversation.
Okay, so I had something, but I think I'm good for now. I guess I'll look to Councillor Plott. Did you have any intent on business arising different than as a suggestion to receive this information? Okay, all right. Go ahead, Councillor Plott.
Yeah, I would just make the motion the committee receive this report for information. Just can't talk.
Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. Please vote. In that carries unanimously. We are now going to take a break. We will be back in no longer than 15 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back to the Council Committee of the Whole meeting of April 22nd, 2026. Moving to item 4.6 on today's agenda, the Fair Access Policy, and I'll look to Ms. Bieberdorf for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. At the June 24th, 2025 Council meeting, a motion was passed to direct administration to develop a fair access policy and procedure. And we have Ms. Esau and Ms. Tucker here today to present the report, and Ms. Wenzel and Ms. Redding are also here to help support and answer questions if there are any.
Great, thank you for that. Welcome.
Thank you to the Mayor. So today we're presenting the Fair Access Policy, why it's needed, what it does, and how it supports council decision-making around affordability programs, as well as some real-world examples of how different approaches impact residents. So this slide shows the affordability programs the city currently delivers and who they serve. As you can see, each program developed at a different time and uses different subsidy models. 75-25 for the Recreation Access Program, 50-50 for the Transit Access Program, and free or near free access for AISH and Explore GP. While each program works on its own, taken together, this has resulted in inconsistency, confusion for some residents, and inequities in access depending on which program someone qualifies for. In 2024, total subsidy exposure was just under 478,000. In 2025, it was just over 500,000, about 50% over what was budgeted in 2025. RAP and TAP together account for more than 70% of subsidy growth since 2024. Revenue recovery offsets only a portion of these costs. Without a consistent framework and clear limits, this growth will continue to put pressure on future operating budgets. Under the first approach that we modeled, Recreation Access Program would have an annual limit of $200 per individual or $1,000 per family using a 70-30 city to resident subsidy split. Importantly, this option introduces a limit without eliminating access. It ensures residents can still participate meaningfully while providing council with budget certainty. Option 2 follows the same structure, but with higher annual limits, $350 per individual or $1,200 per family. On this slide, there is an example of how a family of 5, 2 adults and 3 children might use RAP over the course of a year. Even with an annual subsidy ceiling in place, this family can still access core high-value programming, a week of summer camp for each child, swimming lessons, and approximately 30 to 40 family recreation visits. Under option 1, the family reaches the annual ceiling sooner, and under option 2, the higher ceiling allows for additional subsidized programming. This example reflects a single adult who uses recreation facilities regularly through the year. Under option 1, that individual reaches $200 annual subsidy ceiling after about 30 visits, which still represents consistent ongoing access. Under option 2, the higher ceiling extends subsidized access to approximately 50 visits before the limit is reached. For seniors, particularly those on fixed incomes, access to recreation is closely tied to health, mobility, and social connection. This example shows that under both options, seniors continue to receive a significant subsidy for regular participation. Under option 2, many seniors may not reach the annual ceiling at all, depending on how they participate, meaning their experience may feel very similar to today's program. Children's recreation programming is one of the fastest growing pressure points, particularly as program fees increase and families try to register for multiple activities. This example shows that an annual subsidy ceiling does not prevent a child from participating in key programs like summer camp, swimming lessons, and multiple recreation visits. Instead, it helps balance participation with available funding, ensuring that support can be shared more equitably across households while limiting unchecked growth in subsidy exposure. In closing, the proposed fair access policy provides council with a clear, consistent framework to manage affordability programs in a fair and sustainable way. Today, council is being asked to approve the fair access policy as presented, direct administration to bring proposed subsidy amounts and limits forward through the 2026 fees, rates, and charges bylaw. as part of budget deliberations.
Great. Thanks for your report. Open up to council for questions, recognizing Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. I'm trying to figure out how you calculated the cost of the program. My assumption is that that's the revenue we would have paid if they would have paid full price to drop in at Eastlink Centre or buy a program or something like that. Am I correct in that?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, so just something I want to be cautious with those numbers, and this isn't a criticism of administration anyways, because I don't know how you could get us better numbers, but I don't think it's a fair assumption to assume that it's actually costing us that amount. If somebody goes to the Eastlink Centre pool and the pool's not full that day, they're not actually, like, there's a lot, there's soft costs there, but not hard costs there. And I think that somebody that's on the, I forget what it's called, on the Explore GP program, maybe that gets us revenue because they've started building a habit and they start coming, et cetera, et cetera. So I think these are the best possible numbers that we could get, but I also think that they're approximate numbers and the real cost to us actually is lower than what's presented here. It's just, I don't think it's possible to quantify exactly how much lower, but I just think it's important. We've got a bit of caution when we talk about the cost of these.
Can you explain? I'm not understanding. I mean, our facility is not cost recovery. So how are you saying they're not costs?
Well, so for example, if you've got capacity in the Eastlink pool for people to drop in, and somebody comes and they uses the recreation access pass to get in the pool, they're not actually costing us the $10 drop-in fee to cover the pool if the pool's not at capacity, anyways. Or if a kid, or if this program is used to enter a kid in a day camp program and that day camp's not fully subscribed, it's not actually costing us money to add that one extra kid to the day camp.
Yeah, I can agree with your camp analogy. The other analogy is realistic for anybody paying full fare as well, because but
I guess my point is, if that person was never going to show up in the pool anyways, we were never going to get that revenue anyways, and we still.
Well, if nobody showed up at the pool, it costs a lot more to the people that are paying full price. So, yeah.
I mean, if that individual who came only because they had recreation access program wasn't going to come anyways, it's not like it costs us the full cost they're making.
Yeah, and I just think the reality is people go during peak times. And so, yeah. Recognizing Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just curious if you can, when I look at the TAP program more, I'm just wondering what's been the impact of having the free ridership for the youth? Like, the numbers have dropped. Or am I missing that? Would some of those kids that would have been paying through TAP before, now that we've made transit free for youth, do we know what kind of impact that's made in that area? I'm just curious. I know outside of this, I'm just curious how much if we know.
Thank you for the question to the mayor. That's a good question. I think I will have to come back to you about numbers specifically in terms of how it might have impacted the TAP program specifically. I know my understanding is that it's assisted with youth ridership, but in terms of whether there was an impact on TAP and that, I haven't looked specifically at that.
Okay. And then my other one, when I look at these numbers, if you weren't from Grande Prairie, do you qualify? Like, if when we have all this displacements from being that emergency center, are those folks able to access these programs as well when they come here through emergency purposes? I displaced here from a forest fire from somewhere, I guess.
I think that Director Wenzel might answer that question.
Wenzel?
Thank you for the question through the mayor. When GPREP is activated, when we have residents that come to our community, each of the residents is usually provided with access to our recreation facilities, specifically the Eastlink Center and Kiera Center the last time. So to answer your questions, yes, we do provide those services.
And those have cost recovery from the province? Do we put that in our expenses for fire? Do we put in the recreation expense?
Thank you for the question through the mayor. No, we do not put that through the cost.
Councillor Plott?
That was actually going to be my follow-up, because I'd like to know if we're getting, I'm glad that we're doing that, but it would be nice to get some kind of recovery on it. My other question, if I can have one more, is just more, is this going to be a lot to administer? Like, I go in and buy an Eastlink membership, and then I go and buy transit passes later, and we have to figure out my minimum maximums. Is this going to be challenging for us to manage?
Aziza?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So the hope with having a policy approved is that it actually minimizes the work administratively through our policy and procedure that would be approved subsequently. So we wouldn't anticipate any additional work, but Melissa might be able to add a little more to that.
Yes, through the mayor, the recommendation is based upon what is manageable within our existing systems. And that when we did our jurisdictional scan, you might see other models that other communities use, but historically other things were tried prior to the RAP TAP being established as it is, things like credits and that, and they just don't work well. But in terms of having a cap and that works well for administration.
Okay, no, if it's not going to be extra work, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Ms. Bieberdorf?
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. One thing they do currently is they add credits on through Explore Rec. So having this program set up where we know what the cap already is, they only have to apply the credit once instead of going back to get approval if they're adding additional credits later. So it'll be a one-time entry versus multiple.
Councillor Berg?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. So my question around is AISH Transit. Looks like it's $10 a month as it sits. Does that remain the same, or how is that impacted?
Tucker?
Thank you for the question through the mayor. So that would be a decision that would be something for council to consider as to, there will always be the option as to whether there might be exemptions like that. This policy just kind of gives that framework for what it looks like in terms of the decision-making process. And when the fees, rates, and charges are established each year, council could definitely look at whether there would be exemptions or not. Right now, the policy would stand that everybody, it would apply to everyone, but council definitely has that ability to make those changes.
Yeah, so if I'm doing the math correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's a $200 limit per person and transit monthly passes are $75, they would cap out after 3.5 months.
Ms. Tucker? Or Ms. Isa?
Thank you for the question, through the mayor. So in what we're proposing today, there is only caps on the RAP program. Transit is a little bit more complicated, and there's also grant funds involved through that program. So I think if we were to propose caps for transit, that might be a discussion through budget deliberations, and we would bring forward some options.
Okay, so if we pass this today, this is not immediate, or there's flexibility in there?
Yes, thank you for the question. So this is more so to approve policy, and then we would bring forward recommendations through budget process for fees, rates, and charges.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think that is it for Councillor Bressie.
So, sorry, maybe I'm misunderstanding this. If we approve this today, I'm not understanding. Are we changing what happens with transit?
Ms. Isa?
Thank you for the question. So not until, so we would potentially look at bringing something forward for fees, rates, and charges when that's approved, but no changes to transit as of today if it's approved.
Okay. Well, and I mean, technically, there'd be no change to recreation as of today.
Sorry, yes.
So if
this is just proposed.
I guess for me personally, I can't support scaling back in any way low-income transit support. I can recreation support. So I'm curious, if I vote yes to this today, am I saying, hey, I only want work to do on recreation, or am I saying I want work to be done on recreation and access and transit if I vote for the motion as recommended?
Thank you for the question. So we recognize that the transit program is very beneficial for many residents just for day-to-day living, which is why we hadn't included a recommendation for that within this. So I guess we would bring forward options for budget deliberations, and then it would be decided at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Connor, I see your hand up. Did you have something? Okay, and his hand has disappeared. So, I got a few others. Ms. Bieberdorf.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify. So the first item in the recommendations today is to approve the policy as presented, which doesn't have any caps or limits on it. And then the second direction would be to bring forward the subsidy amounts just for recreation at this time to the fall deliberations for fee rates and charges. So even if we did make a change, it would be for January 1, 2027. But at this time, it's just a policy implementation and the direction to make the changes to the recreation fees.
Great, thanks for that. Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, sorry about that. My video is disabled for some reason. I'm just curious, when we're looking at this and access for people with low income, start your video. Okay. Sorry. There. My goodness, that was fun. I'm just wondering, why is there a limit for this? If people can't afford it on the salaries or the income that they have, why would we put a cap on it?
Burke.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. As we discussed at budget, we were our clear support for providing opportunities for low-income individuals. We were starting to see a trend where a small subset of that of users of this program were starting to use a higher and higher amount of this subsidy, also taking up spaces. So this was just looking at a jurisdictional scan and looking at other municipalities. How did they ensure access for low-income residents that was also able to manage overall use of the facilities? And so it was not to be an exclusionary factor, but to put in some limits that were only really being exceeded by a small portion of program users. So that was the intent of this project.
Okay, Councillor O'Connor, you're good?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning the same way that Dylan Bressy is discussing and saying, if they don't have access, what's it costing us to allow them access, and why is there a limit? That's my only concern. I think he brings up, you'll argue against that, but I agree with Councillor Bressy's thinking.
Yeah, and I would just say, I guess there would be a limit, as there's a limit to everything unless you want to pay for it. So, and the report showed that this was a significant increase in draws financially for us. So council was interested in the opportunities to maybe provide a service that potentially didn't cost as much. So, Councillor Auger.
Thank you, Mayor. If you guys remember, I brought this issue up a few months back about providing bus passes for the homeless and also for the low income. And I don't know where it went, but I guess this is also part of this discussion.
Sorry, just to be clear, Councillor Auger, the report did come back. Council had a conversation about that. So, in regards to the motion on
maybe I wasn't listening or something.
Please continue.
All right. So anyway, I do understand not everybody's on AISH out there. We do have people that have absolutely no money, no income. They're new in town. They're passing through. Some are staying here. They go for free meals at the Friendship Center. And they have no transportation to go look for services. So that was my concern originally, that there was no way for them to get around. So again, same thing, just building on what Council O'Connor. Low income, to me, have a great need for some form of transportation around the city. They're already barely surviving on whatever amount of money they may have. So those are my two things on this year, looking at this year list for programs. And I didn't see anything related to the homeless and low income. Thank you.
All right, Councillor O'Toole.
Mayor Clayton, if there's no more discussion, I'd look after this.
I think Councillor Thiessen might have a question. For it.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton, and thank you very much, Councillor O'Toole.
we'll get to business here right away. Just a question. So we've seen a stark increase, so no caps. It's sort of showed that we open up the piggy bank. We pretty much smash it open in some cases around recreation and stuff like that. I guess my question for you is, without a cap, it gives me a little bit of concern. Is there any opportunity for the system to be gamed? And what I mean by that is, let's say you have a family of 4, a part-time working mother, a full-time working father, or vice versa, but they use the lower income to justify their income level to get a subsidized Eastlink Center pass or recreation access pass. In regards to our due diligence, I know we check out income tax and stuff like that, but is there still room for this system to be gamed? Because we don't ask, is this your total income of your family, right? And in some cases, yeah, that could be used to, I guess, fraudulently get a discount on a recreation access pass.
Mr. Burke?
Maybe I'll help out on that. I'd say it's a small risk, so it's not without possibility, but not the risk we're looking at addressing here. This was trying to put some parameters around really extended use of the program that we're starting to fill up other spots, but also just look at the lost revenue that we had that we do account for when we're budgeting. So possible, not a significant risk for us though.
Okay, thanks for that. And the reason why I ask is based off of what Councillor Auger just stated, was that there's lots of low income and people with next to no income that are looking for recreation access pass, and it would be none of our intention in administration or on council for somebody who could be paying the full price to take a subsidized price away from somebody of a lower income status. So I just want to make sure that it's not a big risk. Got that reassurance over there, but I am in favor of capping this, and I think there's been a lot of thought and work in this. I guess my only other question is I was trying to determine, you showed us option 1 and option 2. So before Councillor O'Toole entertains business, what are the options are we voting on? It's option 1, yes?
Lisa?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, it would be for option 1 at the lower cap. So option 2 was to show a few examples of what the cap limit could be.
Okay, yeah, perfect. I was just clarifying that, so I know how to vote when the time comes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, because the options aren't both in there. It's, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's just hard for council to go and have conversations around other options if they're not easily seen and they're just shown on a slide. Councillor O'Toole wanted business. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. A couple things. Yeah, I definitely can get behind the caps. So for example, I think about summer programming. I really do want to get every kid through it that wants to go through an amazing cultural or whatever program down in Muscogee Park in the summer through a program. I don't feel the need to pay for childcare by putting a kid through the program every week for 8 weeks. So I think that what we're looking at is a reasonable response to recreation programming. Looking at the motion here, when it gets time to be there, a slight adjustment I'd suggest that motion is in motion 2 under that cap per 1,000 family and 200 per year individual. I'd be more comfortable if we made it really clear that that was recreation in the wording of that motion, which I think is administration's intent. But just I'd encourage us to get that in the motion when we get there. I do something that I'm not seeing here that I don't need answers to today, but I think in the policy it says uphold privacy, dignity, and respect in the application approval process. Just something I'm going to continue advocating for, and it was kind of what opened this can of worms anyways, is when a senior fills out their tax returns at Seniors Outreach, that is a trusted organization for us, I'd still love to figure out a protocol that they don't have to go to us and apply again. And anywhere possible, I'd love us to work with the community to have kind of one validation portal. Because I think that really does preserve dignity better for people. Also, it's just administrative work that we're saving for ourselves and partner organizations too. So don't need discussion on that today, but something I'm going to keep on advocating for. Last question I had is, Mayor Clayton, I really hear what you're saying in terms of hard costs, in terms of if a high school kid shows up to swim in the pool on a Saturday when the pool's closed, when the pool's at full capacity, we're turning people away, that costs us the admission fee. When a senior's showing up though, and they're one extra person in lane swim, that's pretty quiet. That's what's not costing us hard cash if that senior wasn't going to show up to swim anyways. I don't know how recreation software works. Would we have the ability, if we wanted to be able to look at times when the Eastlink Center pool is fully capped out and see what percentage of people are access programs at those times? That would just be information that I'd be curious to see if it's easy to pull, not one if it's somebody spending hours and hours and hours in the computer system. But if that is easy to pull, that is something that would be helpful for me next time when we do actually get to the real conversation around rate setting in the future.
So I guess to that point, the second part of the motion, Ms. Bieberdorf, you talked about it being coming to fall budget deliberation. So it should actually say that in the motion, unless I'm missing something.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. It references going to the fees, rates, and charges bylaw, which the intention would be to bring it with.
Okay, so just for, yeah, because Councillor O'Toole is going to make the motion, just so we're clear. And so, Ms. Bieberdorf, on that, the information that Councillor Bressie just identified, if you could email it to Council, that'd be great. It just would be valuable information as we make a decision in the fall. Okay. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I guess just to build on that, it'd be, if possible, not same, it'd be kind of nice to know how often we are just at capacity with that. Because, I mean, it could go the other way where it was full and we had 20 people that were on a subsidy program and walking up next, or we could have 20 people in a subsidy program in the pool already and 20 paid customers got turned away. So I'd be kind of curious just to know how often we're actually at capacity, if that's possible too.
Yep. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Councillor Bressie said something intriguing that I thought I just wanted to build upon that, and that's that one-stop portal where he mentioned seniors outreach as one of those. We also have FCSS program funding dollars that goes out to Housing First adjacent organizations. Typically, they deal with low-income families and individuals who would qualify for this type of program. So if we're putting that thought in ahead of time without motion for like seniors outreach to have one-stop portal shop, maybe also the organizations that the city has in our database that are Housing First providers that we provide FCSS funding through would also be an opportunity for us to do that one-stop shop and to maybe take some of the burden off of our staff as well. Thanks.
And Councillor O'Toole.
We did my turn. Now go ahead. I move that committee recommend council approve policy 220 being the fair access policy as presented.
Motion is in order. Opportunity for discussion or debate on the motion. Seeing no one, I'll call the question.
Bressie in favor.
Carries unanimously. Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, the motion has been adjusted according to comments. I move the committee direct administration to include subsidy amounts for the fees, rates, and charges bylaw at the fall budget deliberations. 70-30 split on recreational fees, 70% subsidy, 30% user pay, and a cap of $1,000 per family and $200 per individual per year on recreation fees.
Okay, so the motion is in order. Opportunity for discussion or debate on the motion in your e-scribe.
Good.
Seeing no one, I'll call the question. And that too carries unanimously. Thank you for your time, ladies, and your information, your report. I'd now look to council to make a motion to go in camera. Councillor Bressie.
I move that council go in camera.
And that motion is in order. Just for those who might be watching online, we won't be coming out of camera today, and we'll see you next time. So I'll call the question. Please vote.
Bressie in favor.
No, it's coming. And that carries unanimously. Thank you.